Sora2 is now in n8n, and with this AI agent system, you can fully automate OpenAI's most powerful video model ever. These must be little guy. Pika! Michael Myers Pikachu? Okay, you want some candy? Pika! Here you go. Pika! Happy Halloween. Pika! Pika! Let's just add a little bit of sky right up here. Let it drizzle over everyone. Really don't think this is... I didn't agree to be a happy little tree right along the jawline. Trees love company. No, I have to go to work after... Is that a dog? Sir, step out of the vehicle for me. All right, pause off the wheel, buddy. Hey, don't, hey, stop before. We betrayed the world government, Straw Hat. We built it so no one else would first. Now, I have become fire. Pikachu. Because if you missed it, Sora2 was just released 2 days ago, and it's OpenAI's video model competitor to Google's VO3. It can produce not just incredible video, but also do it with sound. And in this tutorial, not only will we show how to automate the use of Sora2, but we're also integrating Google's VO3 and Alibaba's 2.5, which right now are the 3 leading video models that can generate video and audio together into this one AI system. Let's get started. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Jay. I spent a decade in creative and marketing work and half a decade leading intro. Just 2 days ago, OpenAI released Sora2. And now the folks at KAI have just launched Sora2 in their platform as well. And in case you don't know, KAI is basically an AI model aggregator. So sort of like an app store, but for AI models, which lets us access these models in a single place and to use them for automations as well. And if you head to their API market, you'll find Sora2 recently added there a few hours ago. And if you click on that, you'll find here that you can now access Sora2 directly from within KAI. So this is good news if, for example, you're not from the US, or if you don't have an access code yet and you want to try Sora out, what you can actually do is to just go to this page and try it out yourself by placing your prompt here. So if you want to use it directly, you can do that via their Playground tab here. But if you want to use it in n8n or any automation, we need to go to this API tab and understand and read through what this documentation says. And what we did is to already read through that documentation and integrate it into this AI system, which we've set up in n8n. And if you're completely new, n8n is a no-code automation tool similar to Zapier or Make, but you can see how popular it's gotten because of the way that it integrates these AI models. The great thing about n8n also is that if you have this template, which I'll upload in our community if you're a part of it, is that you can import that file directly, and that will load the workflow for you automatically. So that's good if you're a bit more advanced and need a shortcut, but I'll also be going through this system node by node so that you can understand the principles of how we built it. Because apart from Sora2, we also integrated 2.5 from Alibaba as well as Google's VO3 in here so that we can compare how they stack up against each other, and also so that you can make your choice on which one would work for you. Because in n8n, let's say if you just want to use Sora, you can just disable these, and that will customize this workflow for your use case. So the way this automation works is you just need to schedule it on when you want it to run, which if you open this schedule node, you can do that here. So you can see it's running once every day. And the second input you want to set up is just this set inputs node, which if you open that, you'll see it's a very simple questionnaire around what your idea is. So for this example, we're going to test out Pokemon doing ASMR content. We're going to create 2 videos every time this automation runs. We have the aspect ratio here, which we indicated as 9:16. And here we have a sample prompt. And these are useful because what will happen next is we'll be feeding those inputs to our AI agent to craft the prompts and the ideas for us. And what it will do is to just send those prompts into our 3 video models to create the videos automatically. So with that set up, we could just click execute workflow to simulate when this automation runs. And once that has finished running, our videos are now stored into this Google Sheet, which if we open that, you can see we have the title of the video. The agent also generated the caption for us, the video prompt that the agent crafted, the aspect ratio, and most importantly, the video files coming from those 3 models, which we can now watch. Eevee. Squirtle. 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 Eevee. Squirtle. Squirtle. And 10. So just from that quick example, it's pretty clear that Sora has won that round because unlike 2.5 or VO, it seems that Sora has innate knowledge of what Eevee and Squirtle look like as Pokemon, and so it was able to generate them much better. Now, an important piece to note if you haven't noticed is that even with KAI through our automation, it still generates the Sora watermark. And that's mainly because I think KAI was able to launch this API just by directly tapping into Sora's website, which if you go there, all the videos that you generate also result to this watermark. So in the end, I'll show a quick example of how we can remove this watermark and also how to automate the removal of this. That said, I think this is just because Sora 2 is really new, most likely as weeks go by, and when OpenAI releases the official API and even maybe Sora 2 Pro, we most likely would have an option to remove this watermark innately as well. Alright, now that we have seen the differences between those three models, at least for one example, the question now becomes, number one, how did this system automate that in the first place? And number two, can we actually use our own products or characters into this automation to take advantage of Sora 2's capabilities for marketing, advertising, and generally commercial purposes? So we'll answer both of that, but for now, I just wanted to show how this automation works. Because if you remember, we just set up our schedule and our inputs here in the beginning. And once you do that, it will run on a scheduled manner and pass all of those inputs into this AI agent node. And if we open this, here you'll see n8n's common design of working, which if you're new, basically here at the left is all the inputs, all of the information and data coming from previous nodes. So you see our input details we typed earlier here. We have the configuration area here in the middle for the specific node that you are setting up. And here at the right is the output that is now passed to succeeding nodes. So here you can see that the output of this AI agent is it gave us the title, it gave us a caption, it gave us a prompt to pass to the video models, as well as the aspect ratio that we needed. And for the AI agent node, there's always just two areas we are configuring here. One is the user prompt. So it's the same as if you were typing in ChatGPT for a message, this user prompt is that message that you type. So if we expand this, you'll see it's very simple. We have these green text, which are dynamic values because we're sourcing that from our input. But in reality, what we basically said to the agent is to give us two ideas because that's what we asked for about Pokemon doing ASMR. We want the aspect ratio to be vertical, 9:16, and a sample prompt to follow for the structure is this, which we also gave it in the beginning. And then with that user prompt, the way that the agent understands what to do with that is through this system message or system guideline, which if you open this, you'll see here we have a pretty robust system prompt already. And this follows the agent framework that I developed and we talked about in a previous video where we're basically giving the agent a view of our main ask, what our guidance is so that it has a bit more constraints on what we want and what we don't want. The E is for examples, just to give it guidance on what good looks like. We have the notation or the structure because we want this agent to give us an output in the JSON or JavaScript object notation format. So whenever you see these brackets and braces, that's what JSON is. And that's very useful so that the output it gives is very structured, which you'll see in a bit. And then finally, we give it an indication of what tools it has access to. So it has access to the Think tool as well as the Sheet, which if we go back, you can see this AI agent is connected to these tools here at the top. So here you have the Think tool, which you can add in n8n. And if you open that, this is just the default that n8n has here. What it basically does is allow your agent to think about its output before proceeding with the automation, just to make sure that it followed all of your instructions. And then this Sheet tool, if we open that, you can see it is connected to our Google Sheet. And the reason why we gave the agent access to the Google Sheet is so that it can check what is already in here and not repeat those ideas. So if you go back to the system prompt earlier, we have a direct line there that says to use this tool in particular to check that we don't repeat these characters. And then like with every AI agent node in n8n, we have a brain for the agent, which we've set to be OpenAI for this case. And if we open that, we're just using GPT 4.1. And if you're curious how to set up this credential, I talk about that within our community and in previous videos as well. And then as good practice, you'd want to add the structure tool. And what I just have here is this JSON structure that asks for the title, caption, prompt, and aspect ratio. And because we gave this guidance to the agent, if I reopen this AI agent node, you'll remember that the output it gave us is also well structured. So it passed this output now to the succeeding node, which is this split out node, which if I open this, all this really does is ungroup this one item that's coming from our AI agent into two items. So it's the same thing, it's just unbundled into two because that's the format that we need in order to proceed to the succeeding nodes, which is generating it via these models individually. But before we do that, you can see that we just have this Google Sheet node to log the idea. So if we open this, you'll see that the operation we're doing is appending the row or appending the ideas that our AI agent just generated. You'll see it's still connected to our Google Sheet from earlier. And when this node ran, what it basically did is add those ideas, the titles, the captions, and everything that our agent generated into this Google Sheet so that we have proper tracking. And once that is loaded, it now passed it to our models in here, which are actually sub-workflow nodes in n8n. So if we take Sora, for example, if we open this, you'll see it's linked to this sub-workflow called text-to-video Sora2, and it ran twice for the two videos that we wanted to generate, one for Eevee and the other for Squirtle. So if you open one of these sub-executions, you'll find that we have this sub-workflow where we basically pass on our prompt to Sora2 as hosted by KeyAI. And here in the end, which I'll also show, is where we got our video back. And before I take you through those nodes, the reason why sub-workflows are really useful is because if you're creating new builds or automations, you can just copy this Sora2 node and paste it into your new workflow, and you can use it directly. And also this format, for those that are more advanced, it's already very familiar to most people. In fact, if you look at the sub-workflows for VO3 and 1.2.5, you'll see that they're pretty much the same pattern of nodes. And so if you learn how to set this up once, then you can set it up for any other model out there. And the way this sub-workflow works is that when this node runs in our main workflow, this start node triggers. And if we open that, we can see that we're just passing along our video prompt and aspect ratio in here into this create video node, which is an HTTP request node. So if we open this, this is the primary way by which we call on third-party tools in n8n. And so we're posting a request into our service, which is KeyAI in this case. And all of these we got from KeyAI's documentation, which we showed earlier in their API section. We have our credentials set up here, which I also showed in previous videos, as well as in the community on how to do. And then here at the bottom, we are sending our message or request, which if we open this, you'll see the format that KeyAI requires us to use. And what it's basically saying is that we're using the Sora2 model. We are passing along this prompt, which you can see here, and also the aspect ratio, as well as the quality. And so that contained our request. And when this node ran, KeyAI said that our request has been successfully sent. And so the way these models work is we just have to wait a bit for it to generate. And so we have a wait node here, which I've set to 60 seconds. And then once that time has passed, we have another HTTP request. But this time, if we open this, this is now set to get, because we'll be trying to get our video from this URL, again, coming from KeyAI's documentation, where we're just passing along this task ID. So this task ID was given to us when we ran the create video step. And this is a unique ID specific to our video that we are generating. And so when this node ran, you can see that it ran multiple times. The reason why is if you go to the very first instance, what it's saying here is that the generation is still waiting, which is why we have a switch node here that follows it, which you can see we just have a couple of routing rules in here. So if it's still waiting or generating, we are mapping it back to the wait node in order to wait a bit more for the video to generate. If it's successful, then we continue, and this return node already contains the video. And if it results to an error, let's say, then we have this fallback node to capture that as well. So if we open this switch node, you can see we have those routing rules where we are just checking this attribute called state that is coming from KeyAI. So if it says success, like this last run here, then that would route to success already. But if the state is either waiting or generating, then it would be in progress. And if in case any of those cases are not true, that means probably that our generation has already resulted to an error, which is why we have this fallback output here. But once that is successful, we just have this return node. And all it does is just capture our video coming from this piece of text that KeyAI gives us, specifically this URL, which if you see the final output, this is actually the final video that OpenAI's Sora2 has generated for us. And so the way sub-workflows work is that the final node that executes, it just sends back all its output to the main workflow, which is why if we open this, we now have those two video files that Sora2 has given us. Now, as mentioned earlier, for 1.2.5 and VO3, the structure of these sub-workflows are pretty much the same. So in case you want a deeper look of how I set those up, you can just check this previous lesson. But once those three models have generated their respective videos, we just have a final merge node in here, which if we open this, what we're doing is just combine all of the output of those three models and combining them into a clean table here, which you can see. And then we have a final Google Sheet node, which if we open that, that is once again linked to our Google Sheet account. And what it's basically doing is it's searching for the title of the video that it needs to update, and then it will update the columns to set the production status to done, and also to map the Sora1 and VO output in here. So now that is the automation in full, where we use Sora2 as well as these two other models to create a video coming from a text prompt. But I think the real power behind Sora2 is when you can use your own product or character and place them into the scene. So what I did is create a version of the system, but using these models' image-to-video capabilities. So same as before, to set it up, you just schedule it on the regularity of your choice. But this time in the input section, if I open this, apart from these usual values, we also have this image reference field where I pasted this URL that ends in JPEG. And this URL is actually pointing to this image of a Yule drink for which we want to make a commercial for to test these models. And by design, what we're actually going to do is to test out a simple unguided prompt just to see if the models can decide on their own what it is that we want to do. And by the way, if you're setting this up yourself, the way we got this URL is through this service called Cloudinary. This is not sponsored, but I just think Cloudinary is a really useful tool for automators because they have a really generous free plan that if you go to your assets folder, you'll be able to upload images and files in here, which if you do a right click and copy URL, you'll be able to get a direct download URL like this that you can use for your automations. So that's pretty much the setup you need. And I'll go through some of the other minor changes I made for this version, but just to show the output for when this automation ran, you'll see we have it linked to our Google Sheet still, but this time for Sheet 2. It gave us these ad ideas, and the video prompts that our agent created is also given here, and now we can watch the output of those 3 models. This is more than coffee. It's Huel Black Edition iced coffee. Smooth, chilled, and packed with what you need. 35 grams of plant-based protein, 6 grams of fiber, and 27 essential... And so just doing a one-shot for each of those, you can clearly see the videos by Sora are just much more polished. I think what's unique about this model that we haven't seen before is that even if you give it a simple prompt, it's somehow able to think through that prompt and generate multiple scenes of what you need seamlessly. Whereas with Veo and One, it used to be that the trick for us to get higher quality outputs from them is that we feed them a really good starting frame through models like Nano Banana or Seedream in order for them to work better. But with Sora, it doesn't seem like we need to do that at all, which is pretty amazing. And I think if you further refine the prompt for this, then you can really achieve some production quality results. Now, before I show how to remove this watermark, I'll just quickly go through the changes that we did for this image to video version, if in case you're setting it up yourself. Because apart from the input, you see here that we just added an analyze image node, which if you open this, what we're basically doing is use ChatGPT to analyze the given image, which we're sending through the Cloudinary URL here. And the output of that is this piece of text that just describes what our image is. And now we include that element into our AI agent input. And so if you look at our new user prompt here, you'll see that we now have this image reference expression that captures what's in that image. And the reason why we do this is currently the AI agent node for n8n is not yet able to analyze images directly. But pretty much the nodes here are all the same. And when we get to the Sora2 subworkflow, and if we open this create video step, and if you scroll down to the body, you'll see that this time we are using the image to video version of this model. And if we expand that, we are also sending our image URL, which is the Cloudinary file that we are referencing from earlier. And then for One and Veo3, we are also using the image to video versions of these models in KAI. Now, if you need to remove this watermark and also upscale this video, because currently Sora does output it at low resolution, one option that can do this manually is this website called Magic Eraser, just in this URL, where you just upload your video and remove those watermarks. But what we're also exploring, just to do this automatically, is this model by wave speed in this URL that can remove this watermark on autopilot if you include this in your automation. So let me know